Hello. It's one of those quiet times. It's early in the morning. My wife's asleep upstairs. I'll speak quietly. 37th video. Well, the trip is coming to an end, and I'm back in Lisbon in the next video that you're going to see. And you know, I was thinking a Shakespearean play is structured in such a way that it has rising action, exposition, rising action, climax, denouement, they call it, winding things down. And that's sort of what happens here in this trip that we took. The climax for me really was probably that video that I said was maybe my favorite video, when that fairly quiet one, the last one that you saw of the Fonte Fria. Anyway, I'm back in Lisbon, and this day, it was a Sunday. I think it was a Sunday. I was to meet a woman named Margarida. Margarida. I had found her online through a forum, sort of, and she was willing to help me with my Portuguese. She'd said that's why she went on there. It was a language forum, and we arranged that. I'd actually meet her. And I was supposed to meet her the first day I got there, but I don't know if you remember, I missed my plane through my own stupidity, really, and inexperience. But Margarida, I want to say it either in Spanish, Margarida. I want to say it would be Margarita in Spanish. Anyway, I'll say Margarida in English. She was there to help, actually, when Shirley got sick that first or second day in Lisbon. We emailed her, and she had suggestions and helped out. So she was very, very helpful. And I was going to finally meet her. Well, Shirley had left. I took her to the airport. I went with her to the airport, and she flew off. And there I was, feeling somewhat lost. For 10 days or so, I had a traveling companion, and now I was alone. And I not only felt lost, I got lost. On the way, I thought, since I had plenty of time, I would go across Lisbon and see if I could go to the Tile Museum. And I asked at the airport for directions. I should probably eventually start taking taxis sometimes, but I I tend to not do so. And the directions weren't quite accurate, and largely because of that, I got lost. Walking in streets, lost. I had no idea how to find this. I finally spoke to somebody who it turned out spoke English better than Portuguese. Anyway, he guided me back, and when I start to film it, here I'm waiting for the right bus that I finally got. I say don't travel alone. Well, that's that feeling. I had that before, and I stick to that. It's not a good idea to travel alone. I think you need two minds on many things, at least I do. I got to the Tile Museum. I actually went in it very briefly, looked around, and then kept going, because by now I was getting worried that I might not be able to make it in time to meet Margarita, and I'd feel really bad if I didn't. So it remains, and it was lovely. I'd like to go there. If I ever go back to Lisbon, the Tile Museum, the Water Museum, which some don't know too much about, I'd like to see them. The City Museum, the year before, Erica and I had gone there, but it was closed. And we went to a lot of bother to get to that, but it was closed. Well, I was to meet Margarida at Colombo. I didn't know. That's a big, big shopping mall, I guess we would call it. And in a way, I think this idea of cack shock, I think I might have been suffering some from cack shock. Once again, I'm in the heart of a really big city at a big mall after being in the quiet forest of Busaco. So I wasn't really feeling my best. And then when I met Margarita, she was so nice and so willing to help. A fairly formal lady. She was dressed up fairly formally. A teacher. Her English is perfect. She lived in the United States when she was young, and her English is perfect. Well, I had real trouble with Portuguese, and it was very discouraging. And a lot of it had to do with the word you. She almost immediately tried to encourage me to use a different form of you. I'd never used it before. It was a level of formality that I wasn't aware of. I knew you could be familiar. Well, in Brazil, everyone always said você, você. Or you could say a senhora if you were really being formal. But there was something in between. And she was trying to encourage me to use that because we were talking to each other. I think finally she said, "Go ahead, just use você." Well, there's also tu. I could have done that. And oh boy, a couple of we had coffee, and a couple of the people there that were serving the coffee, a young man, a young woman, they looked at each other because they realized this was a most unusual situation. I was struggling trying to speak Portuguese, and I speak Portuguese fine when I'm in the country and with farmers and simple people, but it was hard. It was very hard for me. But she worked hard at it. But I was suffering, to tell you the truth. And I began to suspect, and I still suspect a little bit, that I might suffer from a little bit of autism. I don't know. I don't do well with more than one sound at a time. Any of my students from public school would remember if some kid is clicking a pen, I have to make him stop when I was teaching. Well, I was in that shopping center, and I was surrounded by noise and conversations and music and stuff, and I couldn't think. It was very, very hard for me. But certainly thanks to her, she did the best she could to help me out, and then we finally went our way. Now that would kind of end things on a bummer, and you won't see Margarida, and I don't give her last name because I think she didn't want to be filmed. She's a sort of a private lady. But I can end on a happy note because before I found her, I sat there. I ended up getting there plenty early, and I just sat with nothing to do in the mall. And I had found an artificial waterfall. I found a couple. So I found love of falling water evident in the heart of the city. And at the one fountain I sat there and I zoomed, and I just watched people, especially children, relating to this artificial fountain. And you could see they loved the water and didn't really want to leave. All right, see you tomorrow.